Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. So yes, today we are taking a look at our first PlayStation 2 game. And you might be thinking, well, the PS2's not that old. Is that really retro? Yeah, well, it's a testament to how bloody old we're all getting. This game I'm taking a look at today is a launch-era PS2 game, which means it originally came out in the year 2000. Oh, yes, 13 years ago. So I'm gonna say that's probably retro enough. It's still... Man, God, I'm getting old. Anyway, so what we're taking a look at today is a game that a lot of people actually probably haven't heard of, even in the circle it's kind of intended for, which has always been a bit of a surprise for me. We are looking at Silpheed the Lost Planet, which is not only a shmup, but actually one of my favorite shmups ever. It's a treasure game, which, number one, elevates it right there for me. Treasure is one of my favorite shmup devs ever. And it was actually published in North America by the sadly now defunct Working Designs, which like to bring a lot of sort of odder, quirkier Japanese titles over and localize them for North America. Just 1 second here.
White Pigeon 03, this is Control. Roger that. Keep up the good work. Over.
I have them on the optical. Distance 30000. Negative readings on my G-Radar. My computer tells me those rocks got some kind of weird ore.
Yeah, so... while Working Designs did do a lot of localization, I didn't necessarily say it was always good. So, one of the interesting things about this game versus a lot of other shmups is it's kind of got crazy production values. This is a game that came out for home systems only. It was not in the arcade first, like a lot of Treasure's previous work. So they kind of went a little nuts with it. Them and Game Arts, which was the original Japanese publisher of this title, put a lot of work into the story and the general production value. So as you can see here, we've got this crazy long CG intro, which looks pretty jank by today's standards, but when this game came out, this was quite impressive. They also voice acted a substantial amount of content in this game. All the mission briefings are voice acted, and there's a lot of banter that happens from your co-pilot sort of in the background while you're playing, which is really immersive, but at the same time, the voice acting is bad. Oh boy, it's bad. I don't know if it's just like Working Designs employees and their friends, but whew, it's pretty awful. But you don't really care that much. I mean, that's not what you play a shmup for, right? So, yeah, I really, really love this game because it is fairly long for a shmup. It's busy but not manic, like a lot of arcade shmups are. And it's got some really neat mechanics to it and a really, really deep scoring system, and the difficulty curve ramps up very, very well. This game actually is pretty easy for a while, but it eventually gets really, really punishing. And the story in it, it's extremely Japanese, to be sure, but it's also very, very deep and pretty friggin' dark, which I'm going to show you as we get in here a little bit more. And I really love this game. It's kind of hard to find, especially now that Working Designs is sadly out of business. I don't believe you can get this digitally anywhere, which is a real shame. I bought this used from Microplay, which is a Canadian games retailer, quite a number of years ago, and I've never finished it, but I pop it in once in a while and really have a lot of fun with it. So let's dive in here, and I'll show you what this is all about. So you're going to notice as well that this video is in 720p as opposed to 480p. And the reason for that is that I am fortunate enough to still have a working launch-era PlayStation 3, which had built-in backwards compatibility with PS2 games, and actually does a little bit, excuse me, of HD upscaling. So because of that, I figured it'd be good to do this in 720p so you get the little bit of additional options there. So there are a fair number of options in this. I'm just going to load up my save here, which just has my leaderboard data and my pilot name pre-configured. Makes things a little easier. All right, and let's roll this sucker. So got that right there. So I'll give you another idea of what the voice acting's like. Here we go.
FSDH Officer's Log, Federal Space Fleet, Salant Base, GR 1028-0518.2200, SRD 0-88-91. At 2000 hours, confirmation obtained on unknown meteorites in orbital zone. 30 minutes later, one scouting SP-13C lost contact immediately after reporting life readings on said meteorites. SHQ hailed them on all frequencies with disappointing results. At 2140 hours, SHQ tagged the meteorites as UTOO, which had penetrated our geosync orbit. For the first time in Salantian history, SRAF Silpheed scrambled with combat equipment. Their objective, to investigate and, if necessary, engage UTOO.
So, yeah, as you can see, pretty bad voice acting, and the story kind of is a little bit up its own butt. It takes itself a bit too seriously, but it's pretty funny at the same time. But we're going to get to show you here some of the real gameplay depth that this title has versus a lot of other shmups and why I really enjoy it so much. So, first thing here, you have multiple weapons, and you assign one to each side of your ship. I'm going to pick each of these so you can see them here, and you can trigger them both or trigger them independently with each button. So you can trigger the left weapon and the right weapon respectively with the square and circle buttons, or fire them both at once with the X button. And depending on the weapons that you choose to pick, it can actually be worth your while to not always fire everything simultaneously. There actually is benefit to staggering different weapons out. And the way you earn more weapons is as you complete stages, you will earn additional weapons based on how well you score. So you will actually earn weapons at different paces, and depending on how high you score in a mission. So score is not just for bragging rights and leaderboard position, it actually can assist your progression as well. And you see we got a boss right off the bat here. This game is very, very boss heavy. There are lots of general fodder segments, but there are a lot of bosses in this game. You will face them frequently, but they're all very unique and different. The Treasure kind of went really nuts with this alien race they created and the designs behind it. And it's really, really neat what they did, and you're going to see a lot of that here. So I'm just going to chew this guy up. As I said, this game, it does get a little bullet helly and definitely manic in places, but I'm kind of not doing so well here. But as you can see, this isn't so hard thus far, and the enemy's attacks are not that frequent. It takes them a long time to telegraph, and when it does throw out heavy bullet patterns at you, they're not super complex. This is also not a one-hit death game like a lot of shmups are. You actually have a life bar. So after a lot of the bosses, you have what's called a refueling opportunity, which is just the ability to change your weapons. I'm not a super big fan of that slow-firing cannon. I prefer the V-Vulcan for both, so that's what I'm going to switch to here. I just wanted to show those off. But I think where this game gets really, really interesting is in its scoring system. So you not only have to score higher in order to earn better weapons and thus to help your progression through the game, but the way in which you earn score is very, very deep. So you may have seen while I was playing there, and I'm going to show this some more. Look at that. So you see when you make each kill, there's a multiplier. And that multiplier can go anywhere from ×1 up until ×16. And as you can see, it's changing a little bit here. And what it does is it will actually change depending on how close you are to the enemy when you take them out. So the game actually very actively rewards and encourages you being kind of a stuntman and kind of being a little ballsy with your moves. So you see here, this is an easy way to do it because these are not very tough enemies. So you see I get in right close to those guys, I take them out at 16. I kind of hang back a little bit, it's ×2, ×4, or if I do it from sort of the furthest distance possible, it'll be ×1. And if you can do them in quick batches, you see it sort of gives you a little total of your little kill wave there. So you are actually rewarded for kind of taking risks. You know, for flying in really close, doing things in potentially very hairy situations. And you can do this with boss components too, because the bosses, and here's another one right here. So you see when you take out a boss, you have to take it out in stages, and this is also a very common thing in Treasure games. The bosses don't actually have health meters in this game, but you'll see here as I'm taking him out, there's components of him that I have to take out. And you see here you're getting points right off the bat just for hitting him at all. But you see those shots that he's sending at me, the blue ones, I'm actually getting points for taking those out. So there's one component of him there that I got a ×4 on because I was relatively close to him when I did it. And so some of the shots you can actually hit with your gun, and you get points for taking those out, and you actually get more points for getting in close or hanging back and letting them come to you and taking them out when they're very, very close to you. And you also get additional points for being right up in the boss's face when you take out a component of him. So you're really, really rewarded for getting in close and really picking a close fight, getting right up in somebody's grill. So we completed that level. So you see it actually lays out how many kills with each type you got. And I got new weapons as a result of that. So we're going to see that shortly. And now you're also going to see where this game starts to get kind of dark and a little bit morbid, but you see how it's laying this story out here. So you got this sudden alien attack that came in that you were trying to fight off. You were sort of a prototype fighter that was deployed to try to deal with this threat. You thought you'd made a decent difference, and then the aliens go and do this. Ruh-roh. And as you can see, got your people in your civilization here wandering around. Oh, dang. So, yeah. You're up there doing your thing, thinking you're holding your own, and they totally genocide your planet and your entire race. Yeah. Pretty dark. So this is basically a disaster story and sort of a revenge story as a result of that.
Officer's log 1028-05.
So we're probably not going to go through this whole briefing here because this one's actually pretty long. But you see here.
What we had in Solantian orbital space was in fact contact for the third time, but the incident had already become a tragedy. UTOO had disguised themselves as meteorites with the intention of launching a sneak attack. SRF, with its newest utility fighter, Silpheed, valiantly defended the colony.
So it's basically said, you did a great job, you did some very good defense, but you were no match for them, and now your planet is borked. So it's pretty friggin', it's pretty ridiculous. So we're going to jump ahead here. But this is what I really like about this game. It is a really, really in-depth shmup with a very slow and progressive difficulty curve that really gives you a chance to sort of head up here. So this is called the Napalm Bomb, which if I recall is not that great. You also have the optics laser, but let's just try to see if we can play with both so I can show them to you. So now we're down on the planet as opposed to out in space, and you're going to see just how screwed up this place is. And you probably hadn't heard, so you can see here, this is maybe not necessarily the world's best weapon combination I've got here. But you've probably been able to hear a little bit as I played, probably not a lot because I'm talking over it, but there is constant radio chatter in the background. And badly voice acted though it may be, it's pretty cool because it really lends a sense of atmosphere and weight to your actions. You actually have your co-pilots talking about what's going on and what they're trying to do and going, oh my god, look at this, you know, what have they done to our planet? What have these horrible things done? Everybody's dead, oh no, and really giving some weight to the sense of disaster in that. I mean, this is not exactly a high art storyline, but it's nonetheless, I think, really, really cool because, so you see here, I'm shooting my alternate weapons here. Ooh, jeez. I haven't played this game in a long time, by the by, so if it looks like I'm fighting a lot of these bosses for the first time, forgive me. I am definitely out of practice with this game. I have not put the time into it that I wanted. That's one of the reasons I cracked it out here, is because I hadn't played it in a long time, and I thought this would be a good one to talk about. Yeah, take that, spider clamp? I don't know. So you get this real atmosphere around you, and it really does feel like that you are just one ship in a much larger battle and war effort, as opposed to most shmups where it's like, you are the one guy who's out here for reasons we're not even going to fully explain, and you are here to save us all because you are the only one who can stop them. And well, I mean, you kind of are that in this scenario as well, but it really does feel like, you know, there's other people out there with you. And you can see here, we're at the city now, and you can see how screwed up things have gotten here. And yeah, so it really feels like you're one of a fleet of defenders that really is trying to do what they can to avenge their comrades and indeed their race, because these guys, you know, in a very significant way, you've kind of already lost the battle, because, you know, you can see what they've done to your planet, and now you're just trying to do what you can to stop them from going any further. And it's really kind of impressive. I mean, shmups with stories of any real note are an almost non-entity to begin with, and shmups with stories that go as deep as this one and, you know, tend to focus on some fairly dark subject matter like this one are really kind of unheard of. So it's pretty impressive what they did. And it's impressive for Treasure too. I mean, Treasure has made some of the best shmups of all time. I mean, they made Ikaruga, which I will cover one day. They made Radiant Silvergun, which I will cover one day. And those games are very, very mechanically excellent. But because they were also rooted as arcade games, they're very, very fast-paced. You're not really encouraged to take your time. Like, look at how slow this level's scrolling. You can see what I mean here. And like set pieces, like look at that building that fell down and all these other things. You know, it's really taking its time and allowing you to soak in the atmosphere and really to go, you know, look, hey, this planet, it's kind of screwed up, and isn't that kind of disturbing? And Treasure's other titles really, for the most part, really did not do that, because they were arcade titles, and arcade titles require, you know, they're required to be a fast-paced experience, because that's sort of what their intended function, right, is to be fast and to encourage people to spend money. And because this game was designed for home consoles first, they were really given the chance to just sort of take their time and really make a whole world out of it, which is very, very rare, and especially for a company like Treasure, who doesn't have a lot of experience with that kind of game. I mean, Game Arts was heavily involved in this too. I don't want to downplay their involvement in this. This was a Treasure game, but I do believe that Game Arts had a lot to do with the story and the production. They didn't just release the game. I don't think they had more to it than that. But as shmups go, this is quite a bit different, because it really paces itself and encourages the player to really get involved in what it's doing. And it's trying to tell a story that is meaningful and emotional and pretty dark. Sadly, the translation work on it is not super stellar and kind of makes it definitely is a little hard to get emotionally involved in a story that sounds like, you know, office assistants and interns are doing the voice acting, but nonetheless, it was very impressive, especially for a launch era PS2 game. Like the production values on this for the time were kind of astonishing. I mean, when the PS2 came out, it had some pretty weak launch games, and the people were so starved for things to play on their PS2s when they came out that you could sell them pretty much anything and they would buy it, as subsequent console launches have shown us. But this was a game where they really tried to do everything. They wanted to do it right, and they wanted to take a shmup game and really do something special with it. And I think they did. I'm going to try these out. Alright. Sadly, I still didn't get a lot of my health back there, so I'm still kind of in a bad way, but I'm doing alright. But you've seen here that I've been able, you know, one of the reasons I haven't done a lot of the more manic shmups on Retro Flashback yet is because I don't really feel my commentary skill is up to where I can play a very fast-paced game that demands concentration and be able to talk over it at the same time. Because in order to do that well at this stage, either my commentary quality would have to suffer, or I would play the game really, really badly. And I mean, I don't play a lot of games all that well when I'm commentating to begin with. But this one, because this one takes its time, I'm much more easily able to talk over it and still play it fairly well. And I think that's really a testament to it. And it's really interesting that I can actually look at the story for this game and go, yeah, you know, this is really cool. And really meaningful. And, you know, I may not get invested in it as much as some other game stories, but that I can say that it's a shmup with a story that I care about at all is quite a feat unto itself, because so many shmups feel like they have stories because it's a checkbox, you know, it's something that they have to have, but they don't want to do, they don't want to have, they don't want to put in it because they, you know, they're not story writers. And that's not traditionally what Treasure is either, but they and Game Arts put together something quite special here, and it always surprises me how, even amongst a lot of people I know who are into shmups, this doesn't get talked about a lot. Not a lot of people played this, I don't think. I don't think it was super successful. So not a lot of people played it, and a lot of people, even shmup aficionados, don't really, it doesn't seem to get discussed a lot, and I find that really odd. I mean, I could see why people who prefer manic shmups or bullet hell shmups would find this slow and plodding. It certainly is. But that's one of the things I mean, I'm a person who likes kind of all different types of shmups, and I think this is really impressive because it sort of broke the mold and did everything very differently than you would traditionally see in this genre, and yet did it really well. It has a good story, it has kind of remarkably deep mechanics that really, oh dear, and really nasty lava flows.
Continue with your mission.
I can't remember how far back this is going to take me, but we'll see. Oh, all the way back. Okay then. So as you can see, there's where some of the challenge comes into play. So it gets a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's what I liked about it. They didn't sacrifice on anything. It doesn't feel like it suffers from feature creep. It doesn't feel like they tried to do too many things and didn't get any of them right as a result. It feels like they tried to do a lot of things and actually got them all right. You know, they did a story in a shmup that they did pretty well. The play mechanics are really good. The weapon variety is there. The pace is slower but still pretty good. The difficulty curve is remarkably good at easing you in, but and teaching you purely through mechanical play. Like, there's no tutorial in this game, and yet it's very easy just to find out from the things that pop up on the screen to learn about what your weapons are, what your score is, how your score is being affected, and at the end of the levels, what having a high score gets you. They're able to teach all that purely by the mechanics on display. They don't need a tutorial to do it. And it has a surprisingly deep scoring system with, yeah, a lot of weapon customization, a lot of unique enemies, some pretty cool looking environments, and a ton of voice acting and CG. And, you know, if there's one thing you could fault this game for, it would definitely be the voice acting, which is pretty craptastic. But that it's there at all, you know, is pretty amazing. No one would have expected or required that, especially out of a launch PS2 game where they probably could have put a lot less effort into this and still sold enough to make decent money. And this is one of the reasons, like, I didn't care for a lot of the stuff Working Designs put out, mostly because a lot of it was Japanese role-playing games, which I have not really been into since the Super Nintendo era. They're just not really my cup of tea anymore. But they were really special because everything they focused on was putting out games that nobody else wanted to touch for North America, that were very different and very unique. And they didn't actually do many games like this. They were almost entirely role-playing games. But this probably would not have come out in North America were it not for Working Designs. And they did a pretty incredible job with it. And I'm really glad that North America got to see this. It is a real shame that Working Designs, sadly, stopped being able to make money doing that and went out of business. It was a number of years ago now, and because they did something really incredible, and this is among them. I think if you are into shmups, or if you like, and in particular if you like shmups but don't like the ones that are just brutal and very hard to learn, I think you could find a lot to like here. I mean, the story is very easy to just skip and forget if you don't want to know about it or if it doesn't interest you. But there's a lot of really really impressive, heavy, deep mechanics in this game that I think will appeal to a lot of different people. And I think that the only person I could see this not appealing to is people who only like bullet hell or manic shmups. If you don't like stuff that's at a slower pace, then I could certainly see and understand why you wouldn't see the appeal in this one. But if you like shmups in almost any other respect, I really encourage you to try to find a copy of this if you can. It is a little tricky to track down now. There are copies out there for sure. Sadly, though, I don't think you can get it digitally anywhere, which is a bit of a crime because this is really, really something incredible. But yeah, that is Project Silpheed, The Lost Planet. Actually, it's not Project Silpheed. I apologize. That's another game. But it is Silpheed, The Lost Planet, developed by Treasure and Game Arts and published in North America by Working Designs. May they rest in peace. I don't know what Game Arts has done lately, but they are still around, and Treasure is still kicking it, thankfully. But I think this is a real gem of the shmup genre and a real gem of the PS2 launch. And I think it's definitely something anyone who's into this genre should check out. There's a lot, you'll get a lot of value for your money here. My name's been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.